Hey guys, Chris here, founder of Rooted Music. Guys, at Rooted, our goal is to help you learn to play the music that you love by coaching you on the why and not just the what. And we're going to do just that in today's tutorial. But before we do, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel here so you don't miss out on any of the new worship tutorials that we have for you. And I'd also love for you to check out the links in the description of this video where you can download our chord chart to this song for free, and also where you can learn more worship songs just like this for just $1 for the first 30 days. Check out those links and let's go ahead and dive into the video.
Hey everyone, this is JT with Rooted Music, here with you guys today for an advanced piano tutorial of the song Authority by Elevation Worship, and it is from their album Graves into Gardens. And by the time we get to the end of this video today, you're going to know everything you need to know to play this song. And this is a really fun song to play. It's actually not too challenging. There's some fun piano parts, and it's definitely, I wouldn't say an easy song, but it's definitely not as hard as some of our other advanced piano tutorial videos that we have in our library. And this is just a really great song that just reminds us of God's power and God's sovereignty over our lives. So let's go ahead and start. So if you look in the lower right-hand corner of the web page where you're watching this video, you're going to see all sorts of attachments. We have our national number chart, our chord chart, a rhythm chart, and we have the sheet music as well. So at this time, go ahead and either pull up the national number chart or the chord chart so you can follow along with what we're doing here. I'm going to be reading off the national number chart today, but I'll be referring to both letter names and national number names for notes and chords as we go through this video. And before we just dive headfirst into this song, we have a few pieces of information that we're going to look at and really study kind of the specifics of the song before trying to play it, because it's going to make playing the song so much easier when we get to those parts. So if you look at the top of the national number chart or the chord chart, you're going to see here we have our key. So Authority is in the key of C major, and C major is probably the first key you learn as a piano player. It's relatively the easiest key to play on piano because we only have to focus on the white keys. We don't have to worry about sharps or flats, so we only need to focus on the white keys. And you can see here we have the notes of our scale conveniently listed right here. And it's really important for us to know the scale and what notes fit in each key, because these notes are the building blocks of the melodies and every chord we're going to play. Generally speaking, there may be a time or two where we borrow a note from another key, but in this song, 100% of the notes are from the key of C. But in other songs, we may have 90% of our notes or 95% of the notes are from that key. So generally speaking, the majority of the notes you're going to play in any song are the song of the scale for whatever key you're in. So let's go ahead and practice this scale. We'll play it here in C. So we got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then we finish with C. Very good. That's our C major scale. And like I mentioned earlier, we have the chord chart, which has the letter names for the notes and the chords, and we also have the national number chart, if you'd rather read in national numbers, which has number names for our notes and our chords. And so, because we've already built the scale in our letter names, let's go ahead and do it in national numbers too. So, and for national numbers, all we do is we simply assign a number to each note of the scale. So C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, and because C was 1 at the beginning, it's also 1 again at the end. So let's go through that scale one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Very good. That is our scale in both the letter names and national number names. Good, so now we know the notes that we're going to be playing in the song. Let's go ahead and look through this chart really quick and see how many chords we have to know to play the song, because we're going to build these chords, get familiar with them first, because if we do that, it's going to be a lot easier to play them in time when we're going through the song. So here in the intro, we have a 1 with an added 4, so that's going to be a C chord with an added 4th note there. Got a 6 minor 7 or A minor 7. We have a 4 chord, which is F. We have just a regular 1 chord, which is C. We have a 5 chord here, which is G. And nothing new in verse 2. Here in the chorus, we have a 4-2 chord, which is an F2 chord. Then we have a 1/3 or C over E here. Let's keep going. Nothing new here. Down to this chorus, nothing new. Still in the chorus, nothing new. We have a regular 6 minor or regular A minor here. We have a 1/5 or C over G here. Let's keep scrolling. And I think that looks to be it. So in this song, we have a total of 10 chords that you and I need to know. And so we're going to go through and build all these chords, talk about it, get comfortable with them, and then like I said, it's going to make playing it so much easier by looking at these chords on the front end instead of just trying to play through it and then we get to a tough spot and we're totally caught off guard by a chord. This is a much easier way to do that. So let's go back up to the top here, and we're going to build these chords in ascending scale order. And what we're going to do here is we are going to play triads in the right hand, and a triad is a chord built of 3 notes. Every triad has a root, a third, and a fifth. So let's just take C or our 1 chord, for example. So we call C the root because this is the note that the rest of the notes are based upon. It's the foundation of the chord. The middle note of our triad is called the third because it is the distance of a third away from the root. And we know it's a third because we can count our letters in this interval. So from C to E, we have 3 letters, C, D, E, that live in this interval. Even though we don't play the D, we still count it as we're counting the distance from one note to the next. So that's root and third, and then we have the third note of our triad, which is the fifth, and we call it the fifth because it is a fifth away from the root. So we have 5 letters here in this gap. So C, D, E, F, G, all fit right there. So root, third, and fifth. Very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to build these chords, and then we're going to talk about inversions and how to play these chords a little more efficiently in a second. But I want us to be able to see all these chords and visualize them in root position. So let's start with C or our 1 chord. So we have C is the root, E is the third, G is the fifth. And when I'm playing in the block chord style, just from a chord chart, I also like to add an octave of the root note in my left hand, just like that. I think it really just fills out the sound, especially if I'm playing on my own. I would like to have that nice low end provided here, but with that octave down there. So there we go. That's C or our 1 chord. Next we have C over E or 1 over 3. So let's look at it here in the chorus, and this is what we call a slash chord. And slash chords usually have 2 numbers or 2 letters, and they tell us 2 really different but really important things. So whatever comes before the slash, whether you're looking at a letter chart or a number chart, is what you're playing in the right hand. So in this case, we have a 1 or a C before the slash, so that means I'm going to play a C chord, just like the one we just did, in my right hand, and then what comes after the slash is what I'm playing in the left hand. So because I have a 3 or an E in the left hand, that means instead of playing an octave of C down here, I'm going to play an octave of E instead. And you can hear it's got a little bit of a different sound than just a regular 1 chord or a C chord there. So that's how we play all of our slash chords. So whatever comes before the slash, right hand. Whatever comes after, left hand. Just like that. Very good. So that's our 1 over 3 or C over E chord. Next we have our C over G or 1 over 5. It's the same concept, same thing, except instead of playing C and instead of playing E in our left hand, we're going to move to our 5th note of our scale, or G, just like that. So we have a C chord over G or a 1 chord over the 5th note. Good, so that's our 1 over 5 or C over G. Next we have a C add 4 chord, and all we're going to do with this is we simply add the 4th above our root. So in our regular C triad or our 1 chord, we have C, E, G. And when it says to add 4, we're simply going to add this F as well. Just like that. And that sounds a little bit harsh, especially because we have this E and F next to each other like that. And so that might sound a little bit harsh when they're together. However, we don't typically play this chord together in the block chord style. We actually see this, and I'll flip over here to the sheet music here to show you. We see this here in the sheet music at the beginning with this melody. We have that F, and we have this E up here. So that's where that dissonance comes in, but because it's spaced out a little bit in the melody instead of right next to each other, it sounds a lot better that way. So when we're playing this C add 4 chord at the beginning, you certainly could play in the block chord style like that, or if you want to try to play the melody here with these notes, you could certainly do that as well. So very good. So that's how we would play a C add 4 there. Let's go back to the chord chart now, and let's keep going. We have a F chord or a 4 chord. So we have F is the root, A is the third, C is the 5th, add the left hand, and there we go. That's F or our 4 chord. Next we have an F2 chord, and instead of playing A or the third, we're going to move this A down to a G right here. And that's our F2 chord, and it's called an F2 because this G is a second away from F, because we got 2 letters right here in the interval, F and G, and that's called a second. And so they're just telling us make sure we're playing that second there. Now sometimes with an F2 chord or a 4-2 chord, you could also play that A as well. Sounds pretty good as well. You could take out that A if you want to, or you could leave it in. So it's really up to you on that. Whatever's easier for you. If you want to just play root, 2nd, 5th, or if you want to add root, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, that's up to you. I generally like to play all three together here, but that's totally up to you on what you want to do there. Very good, so that's our 4-2 chord, or F2. Next we have an F2 over A, and it's going to be similar to how we did our C over E or 1 over 3. We're going to keep this F2 chord, but instead of playing F in the left hand, we're going to play A, or the 6th note of the scale, in our left hand. Just like that. Very good, that's our F2 over A, or 4-2 over 6. Next we have G, or our 5 chord, so G is the root, B is the 3rd, D is the 5th, add left hand. Very good, that's G, or our 5 chord. And then we have A minor, or our 6th chord, so A is the root, C is the 3rd, E is the 5th, add left hand. Very good, and then lastly we have our A minor 7 chord, which is the same as this one, like we just played, except we're going to add a 4th note on top, which is G. So A is the root, C is the 3rd, E is the 5th, and then G is our 7th. And we know it's 7th because there's 7 letters in this interval, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 right there. And that's why it's a minor 7 chord, because we got to get the 7th here on top. Very good. So A minor 7, or our 6 minor 7. And there we go. Those are the 10 chords we need to know to play Authority. So now what I want to do is talk about how to play these chords a little bit more efficiently and talk about chord inversions. So let's go back to our C, or our 1 chord, and if we look here, we're going to see that C, or the root of the chord, is the lowest note I'm playing in the right hand. We call this root position. But what happens if I take C and move it up here and play C, E, G? Like this. So this is still a C chord. It's still a 1 chord because it's the same notes. It's the same 3 notes. We haven't changed any of the notes, but we're playing them in a different order. And this is what we call first inversion, because now the 3rd of the chord is on the bottom, just like that. And I can also take the E, move it up here, and play C, E, G, like this. Still a C chord, still a 1 chord, because we still have the same notes, but they're now in a different order with the 5th as the lowest note in my right hand, and we call that second inversion when we have the 5th on the bottom, just like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you each of the chords that we went through, but I'm going to show you which inversions I'm playing them in. You certainly don't have to play them. If you want to play them in root position, you certainly can do that, but I do think it's a little more efficient and much more helpful to play these in inversions. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to be playing all of the chords in the block chord style with the following inversions. All right, so let's go back to our C, or our 1 chord. So this is C in root position, but for the rest of this video, I'm going to play this in second inversion, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this G down an octave here. So I have root, 3rd, 5th, just like that. So we got C in second inversion. Now I'm going to play that C over E, also in second inversion. So this stays the same here. I'm just moving from here up to here. So that's 1 over 3, second inversion in the right hand. Same thing with 1 over 5, or C over G. I'm going to play my G chord here in second inversion, but I'm going to play the G, or the 5th note down here. Good, so that's C over G, or 1 over 5. All right, so now let's talk about that C add 4. If I wasn't going to play that melody at the beginning, I would also play this one in second inversion. And I have C, E, G, and then add F here as well. Just like that. So that's how I play that C add 4 in the block chord style. Next, we have F, or our 4 chord. We're going to leave this one in root position because it's conveniently right there. Our hand's kind of hanging out in this middle C and maybe just a little bit below region right there. So root position is great for our F chord, or 4 chord. Same for the F2, or the 4-2, right there. Simple enough, root position. The 4-2 over 6, or the F2 over A, same thing. We'll leave it in root position. Next we have G, or a 5 chord. We're also going to leave in root position right here. Then we have our A minor, or a 6 chord. We're also going to play that one in root position. And then lastly, we're going to take for the A minor 7, instead of playing the G up here, we're going to move it down an octave and play it down here. And this is technically what we call third inversion when we have the 7th of the chord on the bottom there. So I'm playing this one with the G on the bottom in third inversion. Great. There we go. So I'm going to go through those chords one more time because I know we've done a lot. We built them. We've inverted them. Here's one more just quick summary of these chords. So C, or our 1 chord, C over E, or 1 over 3, C over G, or 1 over 5. We have our C add 4, or 1 add 4, F, or our 4 chord, F2, or 4-2, F2 over A, or 4-2 over 6, G, which is our 5 chord, A minor, which is our 6 chord, and A minor 7, or our 6 minor 7, right there. And there we go. Those are the 10 chords we need to know. So what I would encourage you to do is practice those chords, get familiar with them, really get familiar with the inversions as well, because playing the inversions on this is going to make it so much more efficient. So check this out. So for example, if I have my C chord, or my 1 chord right here, and I need to move to my 5 chord, all I have to do is take this C and E, and move it down right there. Instead of having to hop from here to here, it's just 2 notes. And that's pretty efficient, like that's pretty easy. So now let's talk about how we would transition from an A minor or a 6 chord to a 4 chord. So I got A minor right here, and all I have to do is lift up on this E and move down to F, and there's a 4 chord right there, so that's pretty easy. And then also we could go from our A minor or our 6 chord and move to our C chord. All we have to do is take this A and move it to G, just like that. So 6 to 1 is pretty easy, or A minor to C is also pretty easy. So definitely you see there that playing in inversions makes it a lot more efficient, and especially if I'm playing this song in a worship setting and I'm singing along with it, it makes it so I don't have to look at my hands quite as much, because my hands don't have to move quite as much. So that's something you may want to try. If you're uncomfortable with that, that's totally fine. Play these chords in the root position. You know those chords in root position as well. But over time, don't be afraid to try the inversions. I think that really is just going to help you become a better piano player over time, and it really just makes it a lot more efficient. Okay, great. So we've covered all the harmonic elements of authority. Also, I want to point out, if any of what we just talked about was really confusing, we have in our piano tutorial library an informational video on the key of C that goes into a lot more detail than what we could cover today in this video. Specifically, how do we know for sure that the key of C has no sharps and flats? How do we know the differences between major chords, minor chords? How do we know that these chords are the chords of the key of C? It talks about the natural number system and so much more. It's about a 20 to 25 minute video, and you're going to learn so much more than what we could cover today. And what's really cool about this video is not only does the information in that video apply to authority in the key of C, but you're going to learn a lot of principles of functional harmony that apply to every scale, every song, and every key. So definitely take the time to check that out if you had any questions on what we just covered there. All right, so let's look here now at the time signature for authority. And our time signature has 2 numbers in it, and it tells us 2 really important things. The first one, or the first number here, tells us how many beats are in a measure. So in this song, we have 4 beats per measure. And the second number tells us what kind of note is considered to be 1 beat. So a quarter note is considered to be 1 beat because we have a 4 here. So every measure in the song will have equal to 4 quarter notes worth of time in it. And as we look in the sheet music, we're going to see that that's the case, that every measure is going to have 4 beats, and those beats will add up to equivalent to 4 quarter notes. Good. And if you don't know what a measure is simply the way we break the song down into smaller pieces, and it provides a nice rhythmic framework for us to work within, and it just helps us keep track of where we are. So it's kind of like how a really long book gets broken up into chapters. We can think of measures as the chapters of our song, and when we start the song, that's when the first measure starts, and we don't pause or stop in between until we get to the very end of the song. So if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 1 measure. But like I said, because we don't pause or break in between the measures, those cycles of 1, 2, 3, 4 just repeat over and over. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and so on and so forth till we get to the end of the song. Great, and the tempo determines how fast we count through those measures. And so here our tempo for authority is 72 beats per minute, which is a little bit on the slower end of the scale when it comes to the overall spectrum of worship songs. You've probably played some worship songs that may be 110, 120, which is on the faster side. You also may have played some songs that are slower, like around 60, 65, somewhere in that range. So this song's not going to be the slowest song you've ever played, but this song is going to be a little slower, a little more contemplative, and so we want to make sure that we do not rush. So if you're practicing at home, feel free to put that metronome on at 72 beats per minute and really get a good feel for how slow this song is, because our natural tendency as musicians is we always want to rush. We always want to play faster, and sometimes it's hard to play slow songs really well because we tend to rush and we tend to play a little faster than we're supposed to. So just make sure that we're locked in at 72 beats per minute. Great, so that's all the rhythmic stuff that we need to know about authority. So now if we look below the time signature and tempo, you're going to see the song order here, and this is the outline of the song, and we are playing exactly the same way they play it on the recording, so it's note for note exactly what they're playing in the recording. So we start with the intro, verse 1, verse 2, chorus. We have a turnaround, which is kind of like the intro, but it's just in the middle of the song. We have verse 3, 2 choruses in a row, 2 times through bridge 1, then we have bridge 2, chorus, bridge 2, and then we have our final chord or the ending of the song there. And there we go. So we now know everything we need to know to play the song, because we've talked about the key, we've talked about the scale, we've talked about all the chords that we need to know and their inversions, talked about our time signature, our tempo, and the song order. We're ready to start playing authority. Good, so let's go ahead and scroll down here. And let's talk about reading from a chord chart or a number chart. If you've never done this before, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So let's come on down here to verse 1. And verse 1, start over. So let's come on down here to verse 1, and you're going to see some letters or numbers lined up in very specific spots with the lyrics. And what these letters and numbers here are chord changes. And so these chord changes tell us when to move from one chord to the next. So I'll play through these first couple lines and show you how it works. creation knows the voice that spoke into the void. Just like that. So you could see when I was playing verse 1, I played this 6 minor 7 or A minor 7 before creation. Then on the A of creation, I switched to my 4-quarter F, and then after the word knows, but before the voice, I switched to my 1 or my C chord here. So that's how we go through a chord chart. So chord charts are amazing, and they show us really how all the chords line up with the lyrics, which is awesome. But chord charts can't tell us the whole picture when it comes to rhythm, because we don't necessarily know how many beats we're holding each chord, or do we just play each chord one time and then just play the changes, or do we play quarter notes, kind of like this? We really just don't know. And so when we're reading a chord chart, because it doesn't give us that full picture when it comes to the rhythms of the song and how to exactly play the song, it's open to interpretation. So we can kind of put our own spin on it if we want to. But if that's a little confusing for you or a little maybe intimidating for you, definitely just go ahead and play the chord changes to start. And then as you get more comfortable with the song, you could add a quarter note pattern like this in your right hand over time, especially if you're playing in a live setting with a band. You're going to be able to really kind of feel rhythmically what you should or should not be doing there. Just make sure what you're doing is going along with what everybody else is doing. Or if you're playing with the recording at home, just make sure that what you're playing is kind of following what the recording is doing as well. And again, if you look in the lower right-hand corner, we have a rhythm chart down there. And what the rhythm chart is, it's basically the exact same chords that we have in the chord chart, but instead of lining them up with the lyrics, we've put them in kind of measure form, so you can see how many beats you're going to hold each of those chords. So you can check that out there as well. That's an additional resource we provide for you as well. Good, so that's how we read through our chord chart. But what do we do in a section here where we don't have lyrics? Because a lot of the song is based on where the chord changes line up with the lyrics, but what do we do in a spot where there are no lyrics, like the intro? Well, at Rooted, we've got a system that makes it really easy to play through instrumental sections. And so here we have 4 1 chords, or in the chord chart, you'd have 4 C add 4s here. And each one of these numbers or letters or chords here that's separated by a space indicates 1 measure. So this intro, we count our measures. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 total measures. And so we could play it just like this. So we could play that intro in the block chord style just like this. We could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. Very cool. Or we could simply play it for one time and hold it for all 4 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So it's really up to you how you want to play it, but just know that this chord will be held out for 4 measures, just like that. So that's how we read through instrumental sections. Great. So now we've covered how to read chord charts, number charts. We've talked about the rhythm chart and how that might be helpful for you to look at as well. And we're going to get into the sheet music a little bit as well if you really want to play the note for note piano part. But now we're officially ready to start going section by section through the song. All right, so I kind of already did it, but let's go ahead and start at the intro, and I'll play through it, and then we'll break it down. So here it is, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. Pretty simple when it comes to the block chord style. We're just playing that C add 4. We got the C, E, G, and then we are going to add that F, that 4th note right there, just like that. Good, so you could hold it for 4 measures if you wanted to. I played it, I replayed the chord on each beat 1 of each one of these measures here. But pretty simple, nothing too crazy. Let's check out the sheet music, see what's going on here in this intro. And in the intro, we have a really predominant piano part, and this piano part actually loops throughout most of the song. When it comes to the sheet music part, because they have like 2 piano parts in the recording, we kind of merge the 2 together. So in the bare spots where you're going to hear this melody, we're going to have you play it. If you want to keep going with that melody throughout the whole song, you sure can. But then most of the rest of the piano part in the sheet music is going to be the part that really plays the chords. But I'll play through this because it's just the same 8 eighth notes repeating in all 4 measures. So I'll play one time for you so you can hear what it sounds like. So here it is, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. Very good. So that was the first 2 measures there, and that would just repeat again as we're going through in the sheet music. But nothing too crazy, just got a nice little melody there in the right hand. And like I said, that part kind of plays on a loop throughout a lot of the song. So if you want to do that, you certainly can do that and just kind of play maybe the octaves in your left hand with the chords if you want to do that. Or, like I said, once we get into the other sections, we're going to talk through some of these chord changes and what's going on in this part here. Great, so let's move on now to verse 1. And here in verse 1, we're going to go through it. I'm going to say the lyrics, play the chords, and then we'll break it down. So here it is, 1, 2, 3, 4. Creation knows the voice that spoke into the void, the breath that brought the dust to life, and sang the stars to form. And there we go, just like that. That was verse 1. And so in verse 1, we have a total of 8 measures. So let's go ahead and go through the chart here and really break it down. So we start with our 6 minor 7 or A minor 7 chord right before the Cree of creation. And we're going to hold that for 2 beats. Then we go to our 4 chord or F on A for 2 beats. So here's our first full measure right here. Then we go to our 1 chord or C after the word knows but before the word the. And we give that 1 full measure or 4 beats there. Then we come down here to the next line, and it's going to be the same rhythms again. So we have 2 beats of our 6 minor 7 or A minor 7 before that, 2 beats of our 4 chord or F on spoke, and then 1 measure or 4 beats of our C or 1 chord in between the and void. So these are measures 3 and 4. Then we come down here to the third line. We have our 6 minor 7 or A minor 7 for 2 beats before the word the. Then on breath, we switch to our 4 chord or F for 2 beats. Then these words kind of go a little faster here, but we eventually go to our 1 chord or C on dust for 2 beats. Then we have our 4 chord or F on life for 2 beats. So this is measure 5 and measure 6. And then here we have 6 minor 7 or A minor 7 for 2 beats before and. We have our 5 chord or G on sang for 2 beats. And then we have our 1 chord or C in between stars and 2 for 1 full measure. So there we go. So those are the 8 measures of verse 1. And if you look in the sheet music, we're going to see that these chord changes are also reflected there as well. So we got 2 beats of A minor 7, 2 beats of F, 1 measure of C, just like we talked about through the chord chart, and also that will also be reflected in the rhythm chart as well. So let's kind of look through verse 1, see if there's anything super difficult here in regards to the sheet music. And I would say it's relatively straightforward. We are playing most of our right hand notes in that middle C and below position there, so just make sure when you're going through that you got your notes correct there, because sometimes when we're reading a lot of ledger lines below the staff, it can be a little tough sometimes there. But overall, nothing too crazy. So let's go on to verse 2 now in the chord chart here. And what's really nice about authority is that there's a lot of sections that repeat, like they're very similar, and that is the case when it comes to verse 1 and verse 2. It's the exact same thing, same chords, same number of measures, same rhythm, same everything. The only thing that's different are the lyrics. So for the sake of time, we're going to skip over that. Let's go to the sheet music and just make sure we don't have anything really new here in verse 2. And it's roughly the same as verse 1. We have some eighth notes here. Other than that, it's about the same. So let's go ahead and move on now to the chorus. All right, so here we are at the chorus. I'm going to go ahead and play through it, say the lyrics, and then we'll break it down. So here it is, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 word from you, things change on your authority, your word, it's true, things change on your authority. Just like that, and there we go. So that's how we play through the chorus. Chorus also has a total of 8 measures, and we're going to find that most of the song sections in the song, the number of measures is usually a multiple of 4. That's typically the case in most songs. Sometimes we'll have some exceptions, but generally multiples of 4 are kind of the way that just the worship genre and pop and rock and most genres of music, we like to write in groups of 4 measures. So we're going to start here. We have our 1 chord or C before the word 1. We're going to play that for a measure. Then we go to our 4-2 or F2 chord between word and from. Play that for a measure. Then we have our 1/3 or C over E before the word things. Play that for a measure. Then we switch to our 4-2 or F2 on. Play that for a measure. Then we have our 1 chord or C before your for a measure. We go to our 4-2 or F2 again in between word and its for a measure. 1/3 C over E here before things for a measure. And then we finish with our 4-2 or F2 on the word on for a full measure. So pretty simple. So now let's go ahead and look at the sheet music, make sure everything looks good over here. And this is the note for note piano part from the song. So if you want to play the exact piano part with what they're doing in the recording, this is where you would go to do that. And here we got whole notes. We do have, here we got some tied notes here, and this can be a little tricky here. We got a couple 16ths here at the end. So you're going to hold this F2, right here for 3.5 beats, and then these right here, these last notes, this is the and of beat 4 right there, those 16th notes. Let's keep going. And we just got more whole notes. Nothing too crazy aside from these 2 16ths there. So, pretty simple chorus there in the sheet music as well. Great, let's move on to the turnaround. And here in the turnaround, we're going to see that we have 2 measures of our 1 chord. So it would play like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So pretty simple. Nothing really crazy there at all. Just 2 measures of our 1 chord. Just like that. It's going to be similar to the intro in regards to how we count through it, but it's only 2 measures there. Let's scroll down here, and we're going to see that we have this same melodic pattern that we had at the beginning. It's also here in this turnaround, but this time, instead of not playing anything on our left hand, we're going to play a really low C, like almost to the very left end of the piano. As you can see here, we're playing like 3 or 4 notes away from the end of the piano. Just like that. Very good. All right, so here's verse 3. I'm going to say the lyrics and break it down. So here it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. My fight is not my own. Its end is in your hands. I worship you because I know all things. And we gotta scroll down here, right here. Must bow to your command. And there we go. So like I said, it's similar to verses 1 and 2, but we do have a few more chords and a little bit of a different rhythm. So let's break it down. So we still have 8 total measures in verse 3, but here in verse 3, we have 2 beats of each chord. Instead of 2 beats on these first 2, and then we hold our 1 chord or C chord for a full measure, we got 2 beats here of our A minor or 6 minor 7, 2 beats of our 4, 2 beats of our 1, and then 2 beats of our 4 again. So know that each one of these chord changes in verse 3, they all get 2 beats as they line up with the lyrics, except for the final measure here. This 1 or C chord in between your and command, it gets a full measure there. So we have 8 total measures, just like the other verses, but just know every chord change gets 2 beats as we're going through, except for the final one here, and that gets a full measure. Very good. Let's look at the sheet music and see what's going on here. And you can see that reflected here as well. We've got a lot of half notes here. Each of these are getting 2 beats. Have a couple little 8th notes here. And then this C or 1 chord here is going to get that full measure at the end. Great. Let's move on to the chorus. And what's really nice about this song, like I said earlier, it is a little repetitive. And this chorus plays the exact same way that the previous time through the chorus does. So for the sake of time, we'll skip over that when we're looking here at the chord chart. Let's check out the sheet music and see if we have anything new going on here. So in this time through the chorus, we are playing some really low octaves in our left hand below the bass clef there. So again, just make sure you're playing the right notes there. But remember, these are octaves, and these are the root notes of these octaves. So you should be able to follow these chord changes listed up here, and that should help you figure out what some of these really low notes are there. And then we have quarter notes going on in the right hand. So nothing too crazy there. Let's go back to the chord chart, and we're going to see we have a repeat of the chorus, and it's also going to be the same thing as previously. Same lyrics, same chords, same rhythm, same everything. So like I said earlier, for the sake of time, we'll skip over that. But let's come on down here, and we're going to see this is pretty similar as well. These 8 measures, pretty similar to what we just did in that first time. So this is what we call a double chorus, meaning we play through the chorus 2 times in a row here. And these 2 times through this chorus here after verse 3 are going to be fairly similar in the sheet music as well. I do also want to point out, though, that we do, at the end of this second time through the chorus, we do have 1 extra vamp measure that we do add on. So this 4 chord here, typically it gets 1 measure at the end, and then we move on. This time it's going to get 2 in this final chorus. And we can see that here in the sheet music. We have 1 extra little vamp measure here. We're going to stay on the F, and we've got some different chords here moving up there. So just be aware of that. We do have 1 extra measure, and what a vamp simply is like we sit on a note or sit on a chord for an extra measure or 2, just to kind of help us before we transition to a new idea or a new section. So, like I said, this second time through the double chorus, just make sure you're aware we do have 1 extra vamp measure, and that will be our 4 chords. So we'll play this one for 2 measures here instead of 1. Very good. Now let's move on to the bridge. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play through it, say the lyrics, and then we'll break it down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Will heaven not prevail, and strongholds not be moved? Then we got to scroll up here to right here. Will spirits not be silenced and cower at his rule? For if my God is for me, then what have I to fear? And I will not deny him the glory that is his. Just like that. And there we go. That's how we play bridge 1 in the block chord style. So each one of these chord changes is going to get 8 measures. We have 8 total measures here in bridge 1. So let's go back down here and go through it. So we play our 1 chord or C on heaven for a measure. Then we go to our A minor or 6 minor here on strongholds for a measure. And we go all the way back up to the top. We have our 1 over 5 or C over G on spirits for a measure. Then we have our 4 chord or F on cower for a measure. Our 1 chord or C on if for a measure. Then we have our 6 minor or A minor here on what for a measure. 1 over 5 or C over G on I for a measure. And we finish with our 4 or F on glory for a measure. And there we go. So pretty simple. Each one of these chords gets 1 measure. And we have 8 total measures in bridge 1. Let's look at the sheet music and see what's going on here. And this part of the song, the band's really kind of cut out. Like the band was building a little bit here, and now it's really just going to be kind of whole notes. And we're going to build up through this bridge here in just a second. But as you can see, we've got a lot of whole notes, a few little passing eighth notes here. Nothing too crazy, but each one of these chord changes gets a measure. Same thing kind of going on here, a little melodic with some passing notes here in these last couple measures, but nothing too crazy. So let's go on to the next section, and this is going to be a repeat of bridge 1, and this is going to be an exact repeat of bridge 1. Same chords, same rhythms, 8 measures, same lyrics. So for the sake of time, we can skip over that. But let's check out the sheet music, see if anything new is going on. So here in the repeat of bridge 1, we have a few more passing notes here, which just provides a little more melodic interest in the piano part here. But overall, nothing too crazy, nothing that we really need to break down and talk about. So we'll keep moving on here. Then we go to bridge 2, and bridge 2 is going to play very similarly to bridge 1. This time around, we do have some different lyrics, however. So it's kind of as we're going through bridge 1, it's kind of like he's asking the questions like, will heaven not prevail? Will strongholds not be moved? And then this is kind of the affirmation of those questions as we go through bridge 2, saying heaven will prevail, strongholds will be moved. And so it's roughly the same lyrics, but it's the same chord changes, the same number of measures. Everything's the same, just the lyrics are a little bit different, but they're pretty similar as well. So let's move on to the sheet music here in bridge 2. And this is where things do get a little different. We've got quarter notes going on in our right hand, and here we're going to be playing a lot of eighth notes in our left hand, because this is the part of the song where the band's really starting to build, and we're going to really feel that quarter note build and then eventually really feel that eighth note build as well there. So just make sure that you're following along rhythmically here as well. If this is too tough to play those eighth notes, just feel free to hold those whole notes out, kind of like the bottom one here, and you can do the same with this top note. Just hold a whole note there. It's an octave, so it shouldn't be too bad, and really focus on playing those quarter notes. But that's how we play through bridge 2. All right, and so that's how we go through the majority of bridge 2, but I do want to point out, and I actually will go back and talk about this here, in bridge 2, we also have kind of another vamp measure. We actually add a 9th measure to bridge 2 here as we're going through. So we're going to stay on that F chord and really build through the bridge there. So we have 2 measures of our final F2 chord there at the end of bridge 2. So technically bridge 2 has 9 total measures, in which I previously said we have 8 total measures here in bridge 2. Just remember that we have this extra 4 chord here that's kind of our vamp measure here, that we're going to sit on that and build it for 1 extra measure before we go back into the chorus. So bridge 1, the both times we go through it here, we have 8 total measures. And then bridge 2, even though the chord progression is roughly the same, the lyrics are roughly the same, everything's pretty much the same, just remember we have that 1 extra measure on the end. All right, so now let's come on down to the next section, which is the chorus, and this is a repeat of the previous choruses that we've already played. So for the sake of time, we can skip over that because we already know how to play that. Let's look at the chorus now here in the sheet music, and this is a part of the song where they build, but then the band kind of drops out just for a second. So we're back to whole notes here, and then like I mentioned, we have that 3.5 beats here with those 2 16ths there as we're playing through that. So nothing super crazy here in the chorus aside from maybe these 2 16th notes there. Very good. All right, so after the chorus now, we go to bridge 2, and this is the climax of the song. It's going to be pretty similar to how we played through bridge 2 previously, but we do have a few small differences. So I'm going to play through it and show you how it all comes together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Heaven will prevail, and strongholds will be moved. Spirits will be silenced and cower at his rule. Let me scroll down here. I know my God is for me, so what have I to fear? For nothing will deny him the glory that is his. And we have an extra measure. right there. So this bridge 2 is also going to be 9 measures, just like the previous one was, but we do have some different chords here. So bridge 2, here we start with our 1/4 C on Heaven for a full measure. Then we go to our 4/4 F on Strongholds for a measure. Then this is where it's a little bit different than the previous time here in bridge 2, which is conveniently lined up here so we can kind of go side by side. We have a 1/3 here, or C over E on Spirits. Then we go to our 4, or F on Cower for a measure. Then we have our 1/5, or C over G on the word No for a measure. And then here, this is the only time we play that 4/2/6, or F2 over A on the word What for a measure. Then we have our 1/3, or C over E on Nothing for a measure. Then we have our 4/2, or F2 on Glory for a measure. Then we have one extra measure, just like we did here, of our 4/2 instead. So it's similar, but not quite the same. So just make sure when you're playing through bridge 2, as we're getting to the end of the song here, make sure that you're aware, especially these chords right in here, they are a little bit different. So make sure you know which time through bridge 2 you are working on there. But let's come over here to the sheet music, see what's going on. Here, because this is the big kind of climax, high energy point of the song, we're playing a lot of quarter notes here in the right hand. Also, our left hand is going to have kind of a syncopated feel to it because we got this dotted quarter note. So just be aware of that. And then here we got like an eighth followed by some quarters. It all adds up to 4 beats. So you can refer to the playthrough at the end of this video where I play this note for note piano part with the recording to see how this all fits together there. So left hand's a little tough there. If you find that to be too tough, you can just like hold a whole note and really focus on getting the rhythms here with the right hand. And then here we have this vamp measure right here where we got the eighth notes going here in the left hand, and then we got some octaves moving up there. So this is that vamp measure. And then when we come back to the chord chart here, we're just going to play the ending. We have one final measure here. We're going to play that C or 1 chord there at the end, just like that. Very good. And then we can hold that as long as you want. You can kind of hold it. If you're playing a live setting, obviously you're going to kind of team up with your man. And then we get to the ending here, and I'm going to back up. So coming out of that vamp measure here at the end of bridge 2, we're going to come to the ending, and we're just going to play a big 1 chord or a C there to finish the song out. You can hold it as long as you want, or until the recording fades out, or until if you're playing on a worship team, whenever you guys decide to let go of that chord. But there you go. So we finish on a 1 chord or C. Let's look at it here in the sheet music, and there it is right there. Got a 1 chord or C. So very good. We've made it to the end of Authority. And now you guys know everything you need to know to play this song. We've gone through it in the block chord style. You know how to do it if you just want to play off the chord chart. We've talked through some of the tougher elements of the sheet music. If you want to try to play the note for note piano part from the sheet music, you certainly can do that as well. So if you look below this video, you're going to see a comment box where you can leave questions. We know we covered a lot of content in this video today, and some of it may have been confusing to you. So please, if you had any questions at all, ask us. We'd love to hear from you. There's no such thing as a bad question, because if you don't know the answer, how else are you going to know? So please, we'd love to help you out on that. Also, if you watch this video, you're playing the song, everything made sense, and it sounds awesome, let us know too. We'd love to hear that positive feedback as well.
Guys, thanks so much for joining us today in this tutorial. I hope you really enjoyed it and learned a lot through it. Make sure to subscribe to our channel here so you don't miss any of the new tutorials we have coming up. And make sure to check out those links in the description of this video so you don't miss out on the chord chart and you don't miss out on more and more worship song coaching for just $1 for the first 30 days. Check out those links, and we'll see you soon.